Chapter 442. Super Aristocratic Family. Jun Wui was speechless. His thoughts hadn't changed yet. Just like that, they became a super aristocratic family. They were still the same people. Not a single one of them had changed, and yet, they had become super. Jun Moxie Lengleng smiled and continued, moreover, the royal family. I only lack the so-called real evidence. If I had the evidence, then it wouldn't be impossible for me to turn the entire Tianxiang city into a pile of ruins in an instant. The third uncle, the Silver Blizzard City Xiaobuyu, said that he had gone to the Blood Sword Hall. Even if it was the Blood Sword Hall, they were just an assassin organization. How could they have the ability to freely enter and exit an army of 1,000,000 soldiers, and that pass token? Third uncle, don't tell me you haven't thought about it. What does it all mean, and what is connected to it? Now that things have come to this, if we have too many misgivings, we'll only be at a disadvantage. After all, in comparison, we are still at a certain disadvantage, so, we must be strong at this time. Absolute power. Only then can we prove that we have a real backing behind us. Everyone was afraid to act rashly for fear of harming innocent bystanders. This period of time is our time. What we lack now is time. Even one day is enough to change everything. Jun Moxie's face turned solemn as he thought about the elixirs he had collected and the level 9 Xian Dan, the Xian Dan. Everyone was ready, the herbs were ready, and Solitary Eagle was here. With the protection of the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, grandfather's advancement was unstoppable. Then, he would think of a way to promote Jun Wui to Shenxian, and the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer teams under him would be promoted once more. Then, he would add in Bailey Luo Yun and Hai Chenfeng's forces. At that time, they could barely be considered a super aristocratic family. And now, although they boasted of being a super aristocratic family, they were only an empty shell. So, at this juncture, they absolutely could not make any mistakes. Jun Wui's face convulsed painfully. What Jun Moxie said was exactly the thing that he had been suppressing for 10 years. It was something that he had been extremely suspicious about. She was also his other demon. How could Jun Wui not have suspected it? However, he really didn't want to believe that the Tianxiang that his family had sacrificed everything for, would treat him like this. This was not cowardice, but human nature. After all, the Jun family had bathed in blood on the battlefield to get to Tianxiang. If he believed this cruel truth, it would be the same as destroying everything he had built with all his effort. To anyone, this was an unbearable burden in their life. However, don't act rashly before you have concrete evidence. Jun Wui lowered his voice. You can say that to me, but don't mention it to your grandfather unless you have solid evidence. His temper, of course. Jun Moxie smiled and said meaningfully, Third uncle, you're not stupid. I'm not stupid either. Grandpa is not stupid either. You should rest assured that our emperor is not stupid either. Jun Wui heaved a long sigh. He didn't say anything, and slowly retreated. Jun Moxie's eyes regained their ice-cold expression. He brandished his horsewhip, and 3 bang. Bang, sounds were heard. The 3 scholars were hit by the whip, and their bodies twitched. However, they didn't dare to shout. Jun Moxie's gloomy tone was filled with murderous intention as he said in a heavy tone, Shout for me. The 3 scholars scrambled to shout under the unprecedented murderous aura, I'm Han Jidong from the Wenxing Institute. The 3rd young Master Jun is great. He's noble. He's the best. We welcome the 3rd young Master Jun back to Tianxiang. Mei Gao Jia is an old turtle. Kong Ling Yang is an old tortoise. And, the Meng family is a nest of turtles. It was strange to say that the 3 scholars' curses had become smoother and smoother as soon as they had spoken those first words. Moreover, they had become more and more fluent in their curses. They had started to curse at all sorts of vicious and despicable things. However, this was because they had lost all sense of honor and shame after they had spoken those first words. So, they had started to pour out their curses in an unceasing and fluent manner. Jun Moxie was like a brothel keeper who had succeeded in forcing an innocent woman to become a prostitute. He was gritting his teeth as he laughed heartily. He was immensely proud of himself as he spurred his horse forward. The bystanders looked at him as if they were looking at a visitor from hell. Thousands of people's eyeballs froze at this moment. The Tianxiang city was in complete chaos. Jun Moxie's entrance into the city was like an unprecedented violent storm. And it had engulfed the entire Tianxiang city in a split second. All the aristocratic families had started to move the moment Jun Moxie had entered the city. Countless letters of impeachment had been sent to the imperial palace like snowflakes. Several old men had even entered the imperial palace in palanquins. The Dugu family was watching the show. The Li family didn't make any movements. The Tang family was also silent. The Murong family had sent a few people to inquire about the situation. Then, they had disappeared without a trace. Grandpa Jun was sitting calmly on the fishing platform. He had proudly ordered the kitchen to prepare the best dishes and wine. His son and grandson had returned. So, he was prepared to drink to his heart's content. As for the matters outside, he had his son and grandson. But, that didn't mean that they wouldn't dare to touch the Tang family. After all, the Tang family was the weakest of the Tianxiang's families. Moreover, Fatty and Jun Moxie were very close friends. But the Tang family's lord, Old Master Tang, was a die-hard supporter of the Tianxiang imperial family. So, it was better not to make things difficult for his brothers. So, Jun Moxie had to shoulder the responsibility for this matter. Alone in Tianxiang, Jun Moxie finally arrived at the Jun family's residence. He dismounted from his horse and walked up the doorstep. He was about to enter the residence when he suddenly turned around and gave his last order: go. Smash all the Meng family's properties in Tianxiang City. Whether they are in the open or in the dark, I want them all smashed. Ah, not good. I'll let Hai Chen Feng take over all of them. Just beat them up once. Keep an eye on the person in charge, and make sure that he's clean. If the Meng family isn't satisfied, tell them that I, Jun Moxie, said that they would take some interest first. And, we'll settle the accounts later. 50 or 60 members of the Heaven Destroyer team complied in unison. They then rushed out, take over all the Meng family's properties. And, it's only a little interest. We'll settle the accounts later. Jun Wui rolled his eyes. He felt that he couldn't see through this nephew of his anymore. The emperor was frowning in the imperial palace. Mr. Wen was sitting opposite him. The two of them used to talk while playing chess. But, the emperor wasn't in the mood to play chess and discuss the world at this time. He was deeply worried. The emperor's face revealed a trace of bitterness and helplessness as he looked at the mountain of memorials placed beside him. The contents of the memorials were almost the same. Request for the punishment of Jun Moxie. Request for the punishment of Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie is lawless and out of control. He has no respect for the emperor. He has caused chaos in the capital and shamed the world. He should be sentenced to death. Your Majesty, please make a decision. Request for the emperor to make a decision quickly. If this goes on, the country will no longer be a country. Request for the emperor to make a decision quickly. The emperor heaved a long sigh. Make a decision. I also want to make a decision. No one is more eager than me to get rid of Jun Xia. But, aren't you thinking too highly of me? A person should have some self-awareness, right? Jun Zhantian's strength was quite strong. But, he was only at the peak of Tianxian. He couldn't advance any further. And, that's because the Blizzard Silver City wouldn't be able to tolerate his progress. Jun Zhantian may have other military forces. But, I still have a way to take drastic measures. That day, I punished Jun Wui and Jun Moxie for an expedition to the Southern Heaven City. That was the first step in destroying the Jun family. Chapter 443. Your Majesty, you seem to have a lot on your mind. Mr. Wen had just returned from outside. He had witnessed Jun Moxie's massacre. He leisurely raised his head, and looked at the emperor with wise and far-sighted eyes. Then, he smiled and said, "Is it because of that? Jun Moxie?" "Yes." The emperor faintly sighed. He strolled to the window, and looked at the sunset outside. He remained motionless for a long time. "Your Majesty doesn't need to be so worried. In fact, this may not be a bad thing in the long run." Mr. Wen remained silent for a while. Then, he said, "The Jun family is powerful. But, it can be said that their influence is too great. In fact, it has already exceeded a certain scope. In fact, it is no longer a threat to the imperial family, exceeded a certain scope?" "No threat." The emperor frowned. "What do you mean?" "That's right. The Jun family would have become as deeply rooted as the Murong family if they had gradually developed. Then, they would have been able to overturn the heavens. In fact, it wouldn't have been difficult for them to change dynasties. But the Jun family's power has grown too quickly. They've become one of the most powerful families in the world in a short span of 3 or 4 months. He. Your Majesty, do you know where these families have been since ancient times?" Mr. Wen smiled leisurely. "These families have a very special place. They don't have much interest in the so-called imperial throne or imperial power. I'm sure that the Jun family will slowly fade away from the imperial court after a period of stability. They will stroll among the clouds, and observe the vicissitudes of life. This has been the rule since ancient times. And, all the families are the same. There are no exceptions. That's because these families don't pursue a brief period of splendor. Instead, they pursue a long history that will last for thousands of generations. They laugh at the freedom of the wind and clouds. And, they secretly control the universe. Therefore, Your Majesty only needs to choose to be patient for the time being. When this nouveau riche super-aristocratic family has shown off its might and is tired of showing off, they will naturally find their own place. Within the borders of the Tian-Xiang Empire, the emergence of such a super-family was a great deterrent to the surrounding countries. This time, the reason why Jun Moxie's affair with Uncle Ling and his sister-in-law had caused such a huge reaction was not only because of the Jun family's old enemies, but also because the various countries felt threatened and took the opportunity to make a fuss. Even if they didn't get rid of the Jun family, they still had to make the Tian-Xiang imperial family and the Jun family hostile. Otherwise, he chuckled softly, even if Uncle Ling's sister-in-law is morally corrupt, how could it cause such a big incident? Does that fellow Jun Moxie have a good reputation in the past? Your Majesty has always been wise and far-sighted. So, how could you think of the worst possible outcome? Jun Moxie may be unruly, but that old man Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui will certainly accept Your Majesty's goodwill. How could I not know what you're saying? The emperor stood with his hands behind his back. His complexion was bleak, but that's not the problem. The biggest problem lies in the Blood Sword Hall. The Blood Sword Hall? I remember that Your Majesty had mentioned that the Blood Sword Hall is one of the secret forces in Your Majesty's hands. So, I can roughly guess the truth of this matter with Xiao Buyu's confession. And, that is the death of Jun Wuhui and Jun Wumeng. But the Jun family doesn't have any concrete evidence at the moment. Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui still have the final say in the Jun family. But both of them have deep feelings for the Tian-Xiang Empire. They are very sentimental. Mr. Wen smiled. Your Majesty, it's hard to leave a warm land. Jun Moxie doesn't care. But, Jun Zhantian can't ignore it. So, there's still room for mediation. Room for mediation. Room for mediation. The Emperor's eyes lit up. That's right. That incident happened a long time ago. Your Majesty hasn't revealed anything. But, how could Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui not have any suspicions? You must know that the Blood Sword Hall is only an assassin organization, no matter how strong they are. How could they control the army? But, Jun Zhantian and his son have been suspicious for 10 years. But they haven't made a move. They haven't even sought revenge. Does your Majesty know why? Mr. Wen's expression was calm and confident. Why? I don't think that the June family doesn't suspect your Majesty. It's because their entire family has done too much for the Tianxiang Empire, whether they're alive or dead. And that's why they've done too much. Mr. Wen continued in a serious manner. The June family has always been the mainstay of the Tianxiang Empire for decades. They've saved the Tianxiang Empire. They've made the greatest contribution to the Tianxiang Empire's construction. The Tianxiang Empire has a radius of tens of thousands of miles. And there are millions of people living there. But the June family's blood, tears, and sweat have contributed to the peace and happiness of the Tianxiang Empire. In fact, the June family's generations of painstaking efforts have made this situation possible. Mr. Wen smiled in a carefree manner. Your Majesty, put yourself in their shoes. You've done so much for the empire. You've sacrificed 2 generations of painstaking efforts. But, would you really have the heart to destroy everything with your own hands? Would you destroy your greatest achievement? After all, the strength of the June family is unfathomable. The emperor finally sighed and said, that being the case, we have no choice but to let June Moxie benefit from it. Mr. Wen also sighed and said, Your Majesty, you mustn't be too optimistic. It's hard to say whether the June family will agree to this matter. It's hard to send charcoal in snowy weather, but it's hard to add flowers to brocade. The room became silent. Neither of them spoke again. Then, they sighed at the same time. After a long time. In the Duge family, old man Duge Zongheng's eyes opened wide like copper bells. He looked at his granddaughter who had been graceful a few months ago. But now, she was walking down the palanquin like a penguin. She was swaying while holding her big belly. Old man Duge felt as if all the blood in his body had rushed to his head. Duge Xiaoyi's mother let out an sound. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She covered her mouth, and tears started to fall down. Everyone was petrified with their mouths agape. Old man Dugu finally came back to his senses. He was like a crazy tiger in a cage. He circled around several times. But, he couldn't find anything to vent his anger on. So, he suddenly roared in a depressed manner. Then, he ferociously pounced on one of his sons. Then, he started to beat up his 7 grandsons. He didn't care about his body or his head, and started to beat them up in a frenzied manner. He shouted and cursed as he beat them. His accent was very chaotic. Nobody knew what he was cursing. The heroes and legends rushed forward. The 7 bull-like men covered their heads, and squatted down in a circle. Then, they stuck out their butts. Cough cough. You can beat them as much as you want. But, don't hit our faces. These 7 15th days of the 8th month will be dedicated to you. Great General Dugu Woody covered his head and scurried away like a rat. Dugu Xiaoyi quickly came forward to mediate. The effect was very obvious wherever she went. Everyone stayed far away from her. In fact, they were afraid of touching her. That would be terrible. Therefore, Dugu Xiaoyi became more and more complacent. She ran here and there like a firefighter. In fact, it seemed as if she was playing a fun game. A large group of women followed behind her, and shouted at her to stop. Old man Duge Zongheng's anger wasn't a rare thing in the Duge family. Duge Xiaoyi had also gotten used to it. But, Duge Xiaoyi seemed to have gotten carried away. After all, it wasn't fun to tie such a thick pillow to one's body. Moreover, it wasn't very sturdy. But, it couldn't stop one's body from running. Therefore, it was a miracle that one could hold on until now. Therefore, they held on for a little while. Then, the old lady had been staring at her granddaughter since she had come in. But, she had suddenly discovered something that had shocked her. The old lady had felt something strange the moment Duge Xiaoyi had come in. Look at this girl. She doesn't look like, what? Her eyebrows are tightly knitted. Her neck is straight. Her legs are long and slender. She doesn't look like she has lost her virginity. So, how can she have such a big belly? Besides, it has only been a few days. So, how can she have such a big body? The old lady's first impression was the strongest. Therefore, she couldn't figure out the mystery behind it. She was puzzled when she saw Dugu Xiaoyi's big belly slowly slide down as she ran. It started to slide from her chest to her lower abdomen. Moreover, it continued to slide down until it reached her thighs. The old lady's eyes suddenly opened wide. Dugu Xiaoyi had also sensed that something was wrong. So, she quickly and stealthily used her hands to support her lower abdomen. But, she didn't dare to run wantonly anymore. Instead, she sneakily stuck her head out to look around. Everyone stop! What a scandal! The old lady angrily shouted as she slammed her dragon-headed walking stick on the ground. The old man and his grandchildren were happy to be beaten. So, they were still fighting in high spirits. The one who was being beaten was shouting and yelling. It looked like a pig slaughterhouse. Xiao Yi! Come here! The old lady didn't know what to do with the old man and his grandchildren. So, she rolled her eyes and called out. What? What are you doing? My body is heavy. It's inconvenient. Dugu Xiaoyi dilly-dallied as she held her belly. She lowered her eyebrows, and looked a little guilty. It's not convenient for you to run around a while ago. Let me take a closer look. The old lady grabbed her hand, and moved it towards her belly. Dugu Xiaoyi was startled. She spread her arms, and jumped backwards. She was as nimble as a fawn. Then, she vigilantly said, "Grandmother, what are you doing? This is your great-grandson. You must be careful." She hadn't finished speaking when a pop sound was heard. And that a great-grandson that Dugu Xiaoyi had mentioned fell out of her skirt. It bounced twice on the ground, and rolled unsteadily for less than 10 feet. Then, it stopped moving. It was a round pillow. And, a lively and adorable kitten was embroidered on it. It was a long ribbon. One end of the ribbon was connected to the pillow like a skipping rope. And, the other end was still hanging on Dugu Xiaoyi's waist. This thing was already very active, so when Dugu Xiaoyi loosened her grip and jumped, she immediately gave herself away. This. Dugu Xiaoyi pursed her lips, and wrung her hands. Her face was full of embarrassment. She was bashful, and couldn't say anything. Her delicate and pretty face had turned red. This matter immediately caused another round of commotion in the entire family. Old man Dugu Zongheng opened his mouth, and his fist stopped in midair. His old face had turned green and white. Dugu Wudi was sitting on the ground with his eyes wide open. His entire body was covered in dust. Dugu Cheng felt wronged as he looked at his grandfather. He then muttered, "I told you that nothing had happened. I told you that nothing had happened. I wouldn't have known if something had happened. I told you, you told me that you're an idiot. You're asking for a beating." Old man Dugu Zongheng roared like a thunderclap. Dugu Cheng shrank his neck, and shut his mouth. Old man Dugu Zongheng's face twisted as he strode towards Dugu Xiaoyi. He was so angry that he started to laugh. Good. Good girl. You've grown up. You can tease your grandfather now. Amazing. He nodded fiercely. He didn't know what to say. Grandfather. Grandfather, I. Dugu Xiaoyi was panic-stricken. She turned her eyes, and retreated in panic. She looked around for help. But, everyone had turned their faces to the side, and refused to help her. This little girl is out of control. She needs to be taught a lesson. What would happen if we don't teach her a lesson? This is too improper. She's the daughter of an aristocratic family. She's deceiving her family. But, she's even carrying a fake belly in front of everyone. Give her a good beating. Dugu Wudi said what everyone was thinking. Help me. Dugu Xiaoyi ran away. Old man Dugu Zongheng strode forward, and grabbed the long strip of cloth on the ground. Then, he exerted his strength, and fished Dugu Xiaoyi, as if he was fishing. Then, he pulled her back with a whooshing sound. Then, he pressed his palm on his knee, and slapped it twice. Dugu Xiaoyi struggled, and screamed as tears streamed down her face. Old man Dugu didn't feel anything when he hit his grandson. But, he felt sorry for his granddaughter after slapping her twice. So, he didn't have the heart to hit her again. "Father, leave this disobedient girl to me. I'll make this girl." Dugu Wudi crawled up from the ground. He rubbed his hands, and came over with a fierce look on his face. "She dared to make fun of me. She needs to be taught a good lesson. She needs to be beaten. What can you do to this girl? You bastard, get lost." Dugu Zongheng blew his beard, and shouted, "Xiaoyi's body is delicate. How can you hit her? Get out of here and scram to the side." Chapter 445. Dugu Xiaoyi stood up while sobbing. She wiped her tears as if she had suffered a great injustice. The entire family looked at the pillow in the distance, and didn't make a sound. After a long time, Dugu Xiaoyi's mother looked at her mother-in-law helplessly. "Mother, what should we do?" The old lady Dugu angrily said, "What should we do?" He snorted heavily and let out a long sigh. "Things have already come to this. What else can we do?" Dugu Zongheng glared at her and said angrily, "What else can we do? This girl came in with a big belly. I think the entire Tianxiang city knows that the Dugu family's granddaughter is pregnant with the Jun family's child. What else can we do? Damn it! Such a thing actually happened in the Dugu family. This old man is indescribably angry. It's better to let anyone take advantage of her than to let that old man Jun take advantage of her. This is truly a misfortune for our family." "Father, you mean?" Dugu Wudi spoke cautiously. He finally understood that the one who made the biggest mistake today was not Dugu Xiaoyi, but himself. It seemed that whatever he said was wrong. He had become a thorn in the old man's side. "I only gave birth to a daughter. I didn't do anything wrong. What I mean? Bastard! What do I mean in this family now? Can my opinion represent your daughter's opinion? If I say no, then wouldn't the Dugu family stink to the heavens? Can't you use your brain a little? Do you want to anger this old man to death? You idiot!" Dugu Zongheng stomped his feet and cursed. Dugu Wudi shrunk his neck, and didn't say a word. "I'll get scolded no matter what I say." "I won't say anything, all right? Why aren't you saying anything? Aren't you very capable? You still dare to play silent resistance with me? You've really grown up." Old man Dugu walked back and forth in a fiendish manner. His finger was pointing at the great General Dugu's nose, and his spittle was like a torrential rain. Dugu Wudi didn't expect to stir up trouble by keeping his mouth shut. This time, he was truly speechless. Arrange for someone to go to the Jun family tomorrow to discuss this matter. They had to come to a conclusion. We must not let that brat slip away after eating his fill. All the good things in the world have been taken by that brat alone. The old lady Dugu was also very valiant as she made the final decision. "If he wants to marry my granddaughter, that foppish brat will have to pass a test first. Tell him to come see me tomorrow." Tomorrow isn't too good, is it? However, the Jun family is still in troubled times. Tomorrow is a little too hasty. Dugu Wudi looked at his mother with a somewhat fearful expression. "If I say tomorrow, it will be tomorrow. You have to do it no matter what." The old lady Dugu glared at him. "You too, along with those 7 fools, deal with these matters in the capital. Wouldn't that be the end?" She had secretly harbored the thought of sacrificing herself to protect the Jun family. She didn't sacrifice herself. But, her brother-in-law, Jun Moxie, had been drugged with an aphrodisiac. And, he was on the verge of death. And, the instigator had already escaped without a trace. I can leave at any time if I want to. But, where can I find a woman in the barracks? I can't just watch my brother-in-law burn to death if I don't look for a woman. Guan Qinghan was helpless. So, she had to save him with her own body. Some people might say that Guan Qinghan knew that Dugu Xiaoyi was infatuated with Jun Moxie. So, why didn't she call Dugu Xiaoyi back to fulfill Dugu Xiaoyi's wish? But, how could a girl like her say such a thing? Moreover, why did Dugu Xiaoyi run away? Didn't she know the consequences of drugging him? Who doesn't know what will happen after drugging him with an aphrodisiac? Dugu Xiaoyi is such a freak. But, Guan Qinghan isn't. She would only think, why did she leave if she had drugged him with an aphrodisiac? How could she come back if she had left? Guan Qinghan had no other choice when she thought about it this way. She could only use her own innocence in exchange for the Jun family's bloodline. In exchange for the continuation of her benefactor's family's bloodline. Guan Qinghan has no other choice. And, she's duty-bound to do so. It doesn't matter whether or not she has a good impression of Jun Moxie. She can't back down at this time. But, Jun Moxie has saved her life. But, she has fallen into a huge whirlpool. Will the whole world blame her? She had a relationship with her brother-in-law. No matter what the reason is, she can't escape from this blame. Personal reputation. The reputation of two families. Chastity. Chastity. All of this has made it hard for her to breathe. Guan Qinghan would have committed suicide if Jun Moxie had hesitated for even a moment. She's the bravest person in her life. She's the only one who has managed to return to Tianxiang City. It's all for the hope in her heart. Jun Moxie didn't let her down. But, she's still as weak as duckweed in the wind. Jun Moxie's heart throbbed. He took 2 steps forward. Both of them looked at each other. Jun Moxie could clearly see the helplessness and desolation in Guan Qinghan's eyes. Jun Moxie gazed at her deeply. He slowly reached out his hand and held her hand. He said gently but firmly, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Jun Moxie's words were like a sharp sword. It pierced through the haze in the sky. Then, a ray of light appeared in the cloudy sky. This sentence is like an oath. It's like a winter thunder and a summer snow. It's like a shoulder that's as firm as a mountain. It's like a lofty mountain. It's leaning in front of Guan Qinghan's eyes. Guan Qinghan's eyes lit up. Her lips trembled, and she wanted to pull her little hand out from his warm palm. Although she doesn't want to. Chapter 446. After leaving Guan Qinghan's place, Jun Moxie took a detour to his own courtyard to check on Yi Guhan's current condition. After all, Yi Guhan's Xian Qi was crippled, his dantian was damaged, and he had suffered from severe internal and external injuries. Now, his physique was even weaker than an ordinary person's. It was unknown if Yi Guhan suddenly had a strong will to live, but his broken body was overflowing with vitality. This made Jun Moxie very surprised. A person's state at the moment was really beyond Dashao's expectations. However, Yi Guhan had already fallen asleep, so Dashao did not disturb him. Back then, he saved him mostly because of third uncle Jun Wui's face. If not for third uncle's words that day, even if Raima begged him, it would not matter. The true reason why Yi Guhan was saved by Dashao was because of his love and selfless sacrifice for the love of his heart. The next location was back to the hall. Dashao thought for a moment and decided to prepare to help Grandpa Jun upgrade his cultivation level. This was not because Jun Moxie was too anxious, but because Jun Moxie had always believed in one sentence: good things, especially delicious things, may not always be considered as his own once it is in his hands. There is a chance that it could be snatched away by others at any time. Only when it is completely digested can it truly be considered as his own. The peak level 9 Xian Dan had caused such a huge storm in the past, attracting experts from all over the world. Naturally, it was a good thing that could be snatched away at any time. Moreover, the Jun family seemed to be holding countless advantages at the moment. They had a great advantage and could look down upon the entire Tianxiang. In fact, they could even look down upon the entire world. However, the young Master Jun clearly realized that the Jun family's foundation was very weak. In fact, it was far from being comparable to a genuine super family. It was just an empty shell to put up a strong front. The Jun family's greatest reliance was his virtual master. But that extremely powerful and mysterious master didn't exist at all. In fact, the Jun family didn't have a spirit Xian expert in the truest sense of the word. Moreover, Jun and Mo Xia had defeated 4 spirit Xian experts. The Jun family still needed a long period of accumulation before they could grow into a real super family. But right now, they needed a real Shen Xian master to appear in the family. Therefore, the matter of promoting the old master's cultivation level had to be put on the agenda as soon as possible. Jun Moxie led the confused Jun Zhantian and the solitary eagle into the bottom of the newly built tower. This was what Jun Moxie had specially requested when he was building it. It had to be exceptionally stable and sturdy. Moreover, the entire tower was made of granite. It was sealed tightly. Even if someone were to deliberately shout inside, they would not be heard by the people outside. His goal was to wait for this moment. Because the power fluctuations of the level 9 Xian Dan were too great. Jun Wu-Yi had received young Master Jun's instructions in advance, and had mobilized the most elite troops to protect the entire pagoda from all directions after these 3 men had entered the pagoda. In fact, dozens of guards had been set up both in the open and in the dark. Jun Wui, Song Shang, and Hai Qinfeng, the 3 Tian Xian masters, stood in 3 different directions in a triangular formation. They were on full alert, eliminating all possible interference. And the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members, who were exclusive to Jun Moxie, were in charge of the innermost layer of security. Everyone was hidden in the dark with swords in their hands. The Xian Beast tendon crossbows in their hands flashed with a faint cold light. There were traps everywhere. Apart from the silk string trap and the poison smoke trap, there were also 7 or 8 hidden weapons that Jun and Mo Xia had used to soak in the poisonous water. As long as one took a wrong step in this dusky night, even if one was at the peak of Tian Xian or even a Shen Xian expert, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. With this kind of combat power and this kind of ambush, even if a supreme master came to look for trouble, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens to break through these layers of defense. In the tower. When Jun Moxie took out that Xian Dan, the extremely pure energy fluctuations caused Solitary Eagle to open his eyes wide. After a long while, he smacked his lips and said, "Damn it, the whole world was fighting to snatch it. I didn't even hesitate to come from the grasslands thousands of miles away. But I didn't expect this thing to stay in your hands so peacefully. It didn't even show its face. That thing we snatched, what is it?" "Ah, that's a fake." Jun Moxie rubbed his nose and smiled without the slightest bit of embarrassment. "Actually, I felt quite embarrassed when I saw you fighting so fiercely for it that night." Solitary Eagle snorted and rolled his eyes. "Look at you smiling so slyly. Where is the slightest bit of embarrassment? Getting angry with you is a waste of my feelings. I can't be bothered. In any case, I don't really want this Xian Dan. It's more important for me to hone my unique skills and improve my own strength. It's best if you don't mind." Such an open-minded Supreme Eagle would definitely be willing to guide my grandfather to advance. Jun Moxie laughed. After saying half of his sentence, his expression suddenly turned solemn. He turned to Solitary Eagle and said something. "Old Eagle, I'm counting on you." These words of Jun Moxie could be said with sincerity. After all, Grandpa Jun was Jun Moxie's first relative in this world. The advancement of his grandfather's strength was undoubtedly important. However, his grandfather's life was even more important. It didn't matter how much his grandfather's strength increased. In fact, it didn't matter if his grandfather's strength increased or not. However, his life was of utmost importance. Although Dashao was fully confident in this matter, Jun Moxie still asked for his help. It wasn't for anything else. It was to let Solitary Eagle know that I can't afford to fail in this matter. I can't afford to lose. I can only succeed. I can't afford to fail. Solitary Eagle's expression turned solemn. With a rare dignified expression, he said in a heavy tone, "Don't worry." Then, he frowned and said, "However, I won't be able to fuse this thing by myself. I will need the assistance of several special medicinal herbs." "Any one of those medicinal herbs is..." Jun Moxie flipped his palm. Suddenly, 3 kinds of medicinal herbs appeared in his empty palm as if he was performing a magic trick. 3 kinds of rare medicinal herbs. Heavenly star grass. Tricolored lingji. 9 xian root. 3 kinds of special medicinal herbs needed to fuse with the xian dan. All of them were prepared. Furthermore, the quality of each type was much better, far surpassing the normal standard. Solitary Eagle exclaimed in surprise. He carefully examined them and said, "Kid, you're too resourceful. You even got all of these things. That being the case, there's no problem at all." Jun Zhantian realized that Jun Moxie wanted to use the 9th grade Xian Dan to forcefully upgrade his cultivation. He couldn't help but feel displeased. "Mos, yeah, your grandfather is already old. What's the use of such a good thing? It would be a waste of such a rare treasure and a great opportunity. Not to mention, it would also consume a lot of Senior Eagle's Xian Qi. If we must do this, it would be better for you or your third uncle to take it. Wouldn't that be a great thing for our Jun family? It would be even more powerful. But, it would be a waste for me." Jun Moxie smiled faintly. His eyes emitted a deep emotion as he slowly said, "Grandfather's words are wrong. It's precisely because I'm old that I urgently need this thing." One had to know that everyone's age was different. As long as there weren't any accidents, an ordinary person would live between 60 to 80 years of age, while a profound practitioner's age would mostly be over 100 years old. A Sky Xian Pinnacle expert would live between 150 to 200 years old. And, this is under the condition that no accidents happen and he will live a peaceful life. Jun Moxie sighed and said, "But I've been a general since I was young. I've been fighting for my whole life. I believe that I've already suffered countless injuries. My body has long been damaged, and my vitality has also been greatly damaged. Currently, I have pure Xian Qi to suppress it, so there shouldn't be too much of a problem. But, if I were to engage in a fierce battle with an expert of the same level, or a sudden illness, it's very likely that all my injuries will burst forth at the same time. But, if you take this Xian Dan, you can increase your lifespan by 100 years. Secondly, you can recuperate your body and restore it to its peak condition." Jun Moxie smiled. "As for me and the third uncle, we have other plans that are even more effective than this. You can rest assured." Jun Zhantian stroked his long beard and pondered in silence. In the end, he was still somewhat reluctant. Old people all have this mentality. They are always reluctant to use all the good things in the world. They can't wait to stuff all the good things in the world into the stomachs of their children and grandchildren. Even if they don't want a single good thing, they would still be very satisfied and happy. Jun Zhantian currently had this mentality of an old man. Seeing that the old man was still hesitating, Jun Moxie became anxious and said, "Grandfather, I'm telling you, if you really don't want to use it, I will immediately destroy this thing. Although this thing is good, it will also cause trouble. In any case, the third uncle and I will definitely not use it. Grandfather, you must know that you are now the backbone of the Jun family. Everything should be based on the overall situation." After using reason, emotion, and both carrot and stick, Grandpa Jun finally reluctantly agreed. But in the end, he repeatedly confirmed that Jun Moxie and Jun Wui really have other methods. Only then did he feel relieved. Jun Moxie couldn't say too much in front of the Solitary Eagle. There were some things that he really couldn't say. But it really took him a lot of brainpower to deal with the old man's probing. He was so anxious that his back was drenched in sweat. For the evil monarch, who wouldn't even blink even if he slaughtered everyone in the world, this was an unbelievable thing. fearing that a long delay would bring trouble. The moment Grandpa June agreed, the evil monarch June Dashao hurriedly crushed the heavenly star grass. With a flash of red light, the pure medicinal properties of the heavenly star grass had already been pasted on the surface of the level 9 Xian Dan. In a split second, the surging power of the Xian Dan suddenly stagnated. In the blink of an eye, it was completely restrained. The pure and restless energy fluctuated, as if it had suddenly become the most obedient baby. June Moxie didn't have the time to sigh. He gave Solitary Eagle a look. Solitary Eagle understood tacitly and stepped behind June Zhantian. He placed his palms on the top of June Zhantian's head and the other on the back of June Zhantian's head. At the same time, June Zhantian sat down cross-legged with his eyes slightly closed. His appearance was solemn. The unique bitter fragrance of the tricolored Ganoderma permeated the air. June Moxie's art of unlocking heaven's fortune had already infused the medicinal properties of the tricolored Ganoderma into the Xian Dan. Not a single bit of it was wasted. Suddenly, the Xian Dan became as bright as a small sun in the dark night. It shone so brightly that the inside of the pagoda could be seen. The three of them felt a sharp pain in their eyes that they couldn't look at. A halo of light suddenly lit up. Under the glaring light, there was a kind of gentleness that made people feel at ease. June Moxie didn't neglect it. He shouted loudly and operated the art of unlocking heaven's fortune with all his might. The Xian Dan's radiance once again flashed violently. A bright yellow stream of water suddenly shot out from the Xian Dan. It shot right into June Zhantian's mouth. At the same time, the last remaining elixir in June Moxie's hand, the 9 Xian root, transformed into a stream of water of the same thickness. It flashed in the air, and also entered June Zhantian's mouth. Not one bit earlier, not one bit later. Meanwhile, Solitary Eagle's supreme level strength was also fully activated. It continuously fused into June Zhantian's meridians. June Moxie finally heaved a sigh of relief. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. In fact, it could be said that he had already succeeded halfway. Whether it was the heavenly star grass or the tricolored Ganoderma, June Moxie had selected the best of them. As for the 9 Xian root, he had used the most essential part of it. With the harmonization of these 3 elixirs in addition to Solitary Eagle's supreme level strength, there was no doubt that his grandfather would advance. At this time, June Moxie finally remembered to use his divine sense to check the surrounding movements. This was the most critical time. A slight disturbance could destroy a supreme-level expert and a Shenxian who was on the verge of advancing. He couldn't be the slightest bit careless. To be honest, Solitary Eagle's willingness to agree so readily had somewhat exceeded June Moxie's expectations. With Solitary Eagle's experience, how could he not understand the degree of danger of this matter? It wasn't an advancement, but a disturbance. At the most critical juncture, even a cry from a 3-year-old child could directly lead to the invasion of the demons in their hearts, and cause them to go berserk. June Moxie had originally thought that he would have to waste a lot of words, or that he would have to pay some kind of conditions. But now, it seemed that he had somewhat gauged the heart of a gentleman with his own mean measure. At the final stage, your grandfather nearly sucked me dry. Supreme Solitary Eagle smiled bitterly. Coupled with the power of the Xian Dan and the power of the elixirs, this huge progress is rarely seen since ancient times. In just a few hours. Solitary Eagle smiled bitterly and said, "This result makes this old man feel that I'm a fool who only knows how to practice martial arts for the rest of my life. Could it be that the progress is huge?" June Moxie was ecstatic. "It's more than just huge." Grandpa June was very happy. He smiled happily and said, "Before the breakthrough, this old man was at the peak of Tianxian and was on the verge of breaking through. The moment the elixirs entered my body, the Xian Dan entered my body and Supreme Solitary Eagle activated his Xian Qi, I successfully broke through to the first level of Shenxian. After that, your grandfather absorbed the power of the Xian Dan and forcefully broke through the barrier, reaching the second level of Shenxian." Solitary Eagle sighed in disappointment, but it wasn't over yet. The effect of the Xian Dan had slowed down a little. But the power of the 3 elixirs had fiercely stimulated the Xian Dan to move forward. It surged forward little by little, and rampaged through my meridians. I nearly died from exhaustion. It was with great difficulty that I managed to protect Grandpa Jun's meridians. But this old man suddenly realized that your grandfather's luck was extremely good. He was lucky enough to break through the 3rd level of Shenxian. And that's why he stopped. In other words, my grandfather is now at the 3rd level of Shenxian. He's only 1 level below that of Xiao Buyu. Jun Moxie became excited. He clapped his hands and chuckled. It's almost as I expected. I thought that I could reach the 2nd level of Shenxian. But I've unexpectedly advanced by 1 level. What advanced by 1 level? Shenxian is at the beginning of the 2nd level. Then, he's at the middle level. Then, he's at the beginning of the 3rd level. Your grandfather is now at the 3rd level of Shenxian. Damn it! I'm so lucky! Solitary Eagle panted with rage as he flung his sleeves. He felt very unbalanced. I'm going to sleep. You two can stay here foolishly. I won't accompany you anymore. Jun Zhantian laughed heartily. He cupped his hands and bowed. Many thanks for your help, Supreme Solitary Eagle. This Jun is very grateful. The entire Jun family is very grateful. Mei Gao Jia believed that he had guessed the emperor's plan. Therefore, he had put on a tough stance. He had vowed to pull the Jun family off their high horse. His Majesty's backing was tantamount to having the entire Tianxiang Empire's backing. So, the Jun family was nothing to be afraid of even if they were strong. Moreover, the Jun family was on the rise. So, it was the best time to get rid of them. The opportunity was fleeting. So, it would be too late to regret it if it was missed. But, His Majesty's attitude was so ambiguous once the matter got out of hand. Could it be that the unshakable backing I had thought to be useless? Or, is there some other reason? And, Jun Moxie's arrogance has reached an appalling level. The matter had gotten out of hand. The 3 scholars had cursed their master on the street. And, their so-called scholarly demeanor had vanished without a trace. The world-famous Wenqing Heavenly Literature Institute has been embroiled in such a big scandal. This vicious scandal is even more unbearable than the scandal of Jun Moxie's sister-in-law. This is even more unbearable. I'm not afraid of unbearable goods. But, I'm afraid of comparing goods to goods. Old Mei felt that he had failed as a teacher in comparison to the Jun family's scandal. I've taught these unbearable disciples. The situation has been turned upside down in just one day. Mei Gao Jia was deeply worried. My old companion, Kong Ling Yang, must be feeling very angry, right? Lord Mei is in a good mood. The wind is heavy, and the moon is dark. Ghosts are crying everywhere. But, Lord Mei is proud and unyielding. He is facing the heavens alone. He. Who is standing in the middle of the night under the starry sky? A faint and clear voice was heard along with the wind. The voice was faintly discernible. It seemed to be brimming with a warm smile. However, the wind seemed to have stagnated as this voice sounded. And, the world was filled with an indescribable chill. In fact, it'll be an unbearable price. He chuckled. This old man is a civil official. But, there are many powerful people in this world who can kill without spilling blood. In fact, they're powerful enough to destroy unrivaled heroes. And, we civil officials are deeply rooted in the Tianxiang Imperial Court. So, you won't be able to stop us even if you have great strength. Therefore, your best method and time is to choose to make your move tonight. Moreover, the young master has achieved success at a young age. So, it's time for you to show off your abilities. And, the Jun family's fledgling needs a target to establish its might. And, this old man and Kong Ling Yang are undoubtedly the best targets to establish our might. Moreover, I've only known the young master for a short time. But, I know that the young master is a vengeful and venomous man. So, you won't wait until tomorrow even if you have the ability to deal with tomorrow's storm. Moreover, the young master has a filial heart even though his conduct is improper. And, Jun Zhantian will undoubtedly suffer the biggest blow if the Jun family's influence suffers. Therefore, you won't allow your grandfather to suffer a blow either. Sigh, this was an important consideration when this old man had drawn up a plan to deal with you. I had wanted to use the pressure of public opinion to force you to submit. But, it's a pity that the plans of God supersede the plans of man. Your adaptability may seem overbearing, but it's as powerful as a thunderbolt. And, it has successfully disrupted this old man's overall plan. I believe that you would have come here regardless of any of the reasons mentioned above. You would have come here if you hadn't come here. Then, you would have gone to Kong Ling Yang's house. Therefore, you would have come here. So, why wouldn't this old man wait here? Lord Mei treats this Jun Moxie with special respect. This junior feels very honored. Jun Moxie nodded in a profound manner. Mei Gao Jie had obviously investigated and analyzed Jun Mo Xia in order to come to this conclusion. Therefore, Jun Moxie had treated me with special respect. Secondly, why didn't Lord Mei make any preparations when he knew that I would come? Lord Mei is a civil minister. But, he must have had a lot of suicide warriors under his command. He would have eliminated all future troubles if he could have killed me in one fell swoop. But, I didn't find any security when I came to your residence. So, it's obvious that Lord Mei has removed all of them. Why is that? Jun Moxie asked the second question. I mentioned that I've only known the young master for a short time. But, I know a lot about him. The young master's actions may seem arrogant and overbearing. In fact, they may even be absurd. But, I realize that every step of his is closely linked. And, his plans are far-reaching. The young master must have made thorough preparations since he dared to come here. I have a few suicide warriors under my command. But, how could they be a match for the Jun family? I'm afraid that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to chat with the young master in that case. Mei Gao Jie smiled wisely. This old man is a scholar who doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken. I've never understood the cultivation of Xian Qi. And, I don't know the difference between Tian Xian and Shen Xian. But, this old man knows that I'm no match for the Jun family. And, this old man is here alone. So, the young master will certainly come and have a chat with me. I had thought that Lord Mei was a rotten scholar. But, it seems that you're a wise man. Jun Moxie laughed out loud. Then, he poured 2 cups of wine. Mo Xia would like to offer you another cup for what you've just said. Mei Gao Jie's complexion was calm as he drank the wine. The third question. I, Jun Moxie, have behaved improperly. But, that's my own business. It's the Jun family's private business. What does it have to do with you? Besides, you know the truth of this matter. So, why do you insist on putting a bucket of sh*t on my head? Why do you insist on putting me to death? Jun Moxie couldn't understand this question. It seems that my personal moral corruption has nothing to do with the Tianxiang Empire's customs, right? Such a far-fetched accusation has provoked the Jun family's thunderous wrath. And, it's inviting a fatal disaster. So, why bother? I've never been a good person in the past if it's for the livelihood of the common people. But, I don't see you standing up for the people of the world. Won't you give me an explanation? This dispute ends with the young master. But, it also begins with the young master. Jun Zhantian and the old master Jun have some old grudges. But, this old man isn't unable to tolerate the existence of the Jun family. Moreover, the old master Jun is a good man for the country and the people. And, his son, Jun Wui, is also the same. This old man has different political views. And, this old man admires this father and son even though they fight on the surface. In fact, this old man wouldn't have impeached them if it had been for them. In fact, I would have done my best to protect them. But, this matter has happened because of you. Young Master June Moxie. Mei Gao Jia Lengling smiled, that's because you're the kind of person who doesn't put the common people in your eyes. In fact, you're the kind of person who ignores the world. June Moxie, on this point, this old man will definitely not misjudge you. Speaking of which, it's laughable that someone like this old man is actually young master's confidant. And, a person like you is bound to cause endless disasters if you were to inherit the June family's enormous power. Even if you turn the entire Tianxiang kingdom upside down, this old man will not doubt it. Therefore, since you've made a name for yourself, it's a sign of danger. He must be strangled to death in time. Not to mention those who didn't enter the imperial court, those who did are all shameless and unscrupulous people. Nonsense. Mei Gao Jie became angry. He had students all over the world. This was Mei Gao Jie's greatest achievement. He was also his greatest pride. Seeing his disciples all over the world was his greatest comfort. No matter what Jun Imo Xia said to him, he wouldn't be moved. He would just laugh it off. But now that this matter had been brought up, it had triggered his reverse scale. This white-haired old man instantly became as agitated as a fighting cock. Which one of my disciples isn't a pillar of the empire? 19 of them have become the empire's feudal officials. They've brought grace to the 4 seas, and they've brought prosperity to the people. They've become the empire's pillars. June Moxie, you're just a good-for-nothing. What qualifications do you have to talk about my disciples? They're the empire's outstanding talents. The old man stood up. His face was flushed with excitement. His fingers were also trembling. Sit down. Old man, why are you so excited? This young master has overestimated your disciples by saying that they're trash. Trash can be recycled and reused. They don't even have this value. June Moxie sneered. He turned his palm over. Mei Gao Jia, open your old eyes wide. Take a good look at the political achievements of your disciples. They've brought prosperity to the 4 seas. A thin booklet appeared in his hand, and he threw it towards Mei Gao Jia. Mei Gao Jia was startled as soon as he received it. He suspiciously looked at June Moxie. Then, he slowly read it. On it, it really was the glorious achievements of his disciples. A certain year, month, and day, a certain disciple used his authority to bully a certain wealthy merchant. He demanded a certain amount of bribes. A certain day, he forcefully took the daughter of that merchant as a concubine. He hounded her parents to death. Then, this disciple had violated the law. There were a great number of incidents. There were no less than dozens of them. And, each and every one of these incidents was well documented. There were witnesses and material evidence. There was no doubt about it. Then, there was another incident. Every incident had a clear date of investigation. But, the date of the investigation was different as well. Some pages had yellowed, and the edges of the pages had curled up. These pieces of evidence were hard to refute. Perhaps, it wouldn't be enough to sentence these guys to death by dismemberment 100 times if they were to be punished in accordance with these incidents. Mei Gao Jia flipped through several pages. Then, his hand trembled, and the booklet fell on the table with a clatter. Chapter 450. Erupt. The 4th chapter. Tears streamed down Mei Gao Jia's face at this moment. The old man felt ashamed under Jun Imo Xia's knife-like gaze of disdain. This is the disciple that I've painstakingly trained. This is the pillar that I've cultivated for the empire. But, what's the difference between this and the so-called corrupt officials? What's the difference between this and the vermin of the nation? Mei Gao Jia stared blankly in silence. Mei Gao Jia, this is the disciple that you've painstakingly trained for so many years. You think of them as the pillars of the empire. However, these are only a small part of them. You've been in charge of the Wenxing Heavenly Institute for decades. How many disciples have you taught? Mei Gao Jia, you've always stood at the highest point of morality. You don't think that you're stuck in the filth of the world. But, you've come to accuse me of bringing disaster to Tianxiang. Why don't you open your eyes and see clearly who's bringing disaster to Tianxiang? The destruction that you've caused is thousands of times greater than mine. It's tens of thousands of times greater. Mei Gao Jia, let me ask you. What qualifications do you have to accuse me? Even if you accuse me of rebelling, I still need troops, right? Dare I ask where these troops came from? Wasn't it all because your disciples forced the people to rebel against the government? Mei Gao Jia, you'll be my biggest accomplice if I rebel. You'll be my biggest help, and my most hidden accomplice. Do you agree with what I've said? Great Sage Mei. Jun Moxie chuckled, I wouldn't have known if I hadn't said it. But, it turns out that we're one family, the same group of people. When a crow meets an old crow, no one can say that they're very clean. Am I right or not? Mei Gao Jia staggered 2 steps back. His calm face had long since vanished. His complexion had turned deathly pale, like dead ashes. Mei Gao Jia. Master Mei. Mr. Wise. You keep on saying that you've cultivated the pillars of the empire for decades. But, do you see what kind of trash you've nurtured today? They're nothing more than millions of vermin that will bring disaster to the nation. Ha ha ha, this is ridiculous. Look at the place where you live. What's the difference between you and a beggar? But do you think you can make up for the sins you have committed by remaining uncorrupted? No. This was simply too many to count. If you say that I bring disaster to the world, then what about you? I really can't think of any adjectives to describe it. Perhaps you can give yourself an explanation. Jun Moxie's words became sharper and sharper. At this moment, Jun Dashao's true purpose finally revealed itself. The purpose of Jun Moxie's visit was to catch all these hypocrites in one fell swoop. However, Jun Moxie's investigation was only the tip of the iceberg. Soon, he came out with a thick name list. The name list was marked in great detail. Since the establishment of the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute, the first batch of students had entered the official career, when they had taken up their posts, when they had been transferred, the process, and what they were doing at the moment. Every one of them knew it very clearly. This was Mei Gao Jia's greatest pride and achievement. It was also something that he had often taken out to show off. But, it had now become a life-threatening talisman for the students. Jun Moxie, it doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. It doesn't matter whether you're doing this for justice or for personal enmity. But, this old man believes you because of what you've just said about the true meaning of education. But, please get rid of these black sheep. This old man owes you a favor. I'll certainly repay you in my next life. Mei Gao Jia's complexion turned serious. He suddenly shouted in a stern voice, but, you must investigate this matter thoroughly. You mustn't kill the innocent for the sake of my students. Otherwise, this old man won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Jun Moxie snorted and said, I've never considered myself a good person. But, I'm much more conscientious than you guys. I won't be able to sleep peacefully if I accidentally kill a good person. What's the point of living if I can't even sleep peacefully? Mei Gao Jia burst into loud laughter. His voice was mournful as he suddenly muttered, sleep peacefully. Good. 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 This old man has taught hundreds of thousands of students. But, it's only today that I understand the true meaning of the word education. This old man hates it. Why did I turn a deaf ear to these words? Snort disdainfully. Ha ha ha. I wanted to leave my name in the annals of history. But, I didn't expect to leave my name in infamy for 10,000 years. This old man hates it very much. I hate it very much. I'm the only one in the world who would do such a ridiculous thing by borrowing the hands of my enemies. Ha ha ha. He laughed twice. Then, he suddenly retreated 2 steps and rushed forward. June Moxie sighed and dodged to the side. Bang! Mei Gao Jie's old head hit the stone table. His brains burst open, and he died a violent death. His eyes were wide open on his white-haired old face. They were firmly looking at the dusky sky. One could faintly see that his eyes were brimming with shame. Mei Gao Jia, if I say that you're righteous, then you're hopelessly pedantic. If I say that you're muddle-headed, then you can clearly distinguish right from wrong. You deserve to die, but you don't deserve to die. But, you've offended me. You don't deserve to die. You deserve to die. Because then, a large number of officials were suddenly killed. In the dark of the night, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Rights, Zhao Qingjun, was bent over his desk, writing at a rapid speed. He was writing a memorial to the Jun family. He was prepared to face the emperor tomorrow and bring the Jun family down no matter what. Assistant Minister Zhao was very confident at this moment. Under the strong leadership of the 2 teachers, the strength of the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute had been completely mobilized. In addition, these people had formed a huge network of relationships over the years. So, they were an exceptionally powerful force. More than 300 officials, both inside and outside the capital, had signed a joint petition to impeach the Jun family. How spectacular would that be? I believe that even the emperor wouldn't be able to take it lightly. Your Jun family may be in control of the Tianxiang army, but you're still just a family. Can you fight against the entire Tianxiang civil court system? Even if that little thief from the Jun family went crazy and killed people in an attempt to scare them off, so what? It was just a reckless act of a brave man. Humph, the bigger the mess he makes, the better. The more people he kills, the better. That way, there will be no room for turning the situation around. The Jun family will also be forced into a dead end, and will be consigned to eternal damnation. Jun Mo Xia, go ahead and mess around, go ahead and mess around. So what if you make trouble? If the emperor wants you dead, then you must die. But we have enough power to sway the emperor's opinion. We can absolutely use the emperor to put you to death, and the entire Jun family to death. One imperial edict is enough to consign you to eternal damnation. The Jun family is bound to be destroyed. Therefore, Assistant Minister Zhao had to stay up all night to produce a well-written and well-organized attack on the Jun family. This would be a sharp weapon for tomorrow's imperial hall. It was finally done. Assistant Minister Zhao let out a long sigh, and couldn't help but recite it in a soft voice. The more he recited, the more agitated he became. It seemed as if His Majesty was standing right in front of him. This article was truly brilliant. It had made the Jun family, the protector of Tianxiang, look like they had no good points at all. In fact, it seemed as if the extermination of their entire family wasn't enough. As for the main culprits, Jun Moxie and Guan Qinghan, they had no sense of shame at all. Saying that the men were thieves and the women were prostitutes was the most polite way to put it. The men were despicable, and the women were lowly. They had no sense of propriety or shame. If they were allowed to live in this world, then they would be letting the emperor down, letting the people down, letting Tianxiang down, and letting the world down. In short, even 10,000 deaths wouldn't be enough to atone for their crimes. Good article. This is the best article this official has ever written in this life. I'm afraid that I won't be able to produce such a good article in the future. Assistant Minister Zhao read the article to his heart's content, and sighed with satisfaction. He felt very good about himself as he shook his head. He felt that this was the first time he had produced such a good article ever since he had left the Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute. Sharp words like this, but it seemed to be filled with the most concrete evidence. However, it was completely empty. Moreover, it could still kill someone. It was truly rare to see an article like this. It is indeed a good article. Just as Assistant Minister Zhao was praising himself, a sudden sigh came from behind him. Not bad. Ah, Assistant Minister Zhao nodded proudly. Then, he was suddenly shocked. Who is it? The article is really good. However, the person is not that good either. However, there is one thing that you are right about. You definitely won't be able to produce such a good article in the future. Because you won't have the chance anymore. Zhao Qingjun, a person like you, where in this world can you display your outstanding talent? You should go to hell. That place is more suitable for you. As he spoke softly, a white-clothed youth slowly walked in front of Zhao Qingjun. He grabbed the memorial and unfolded it in the wind. Suddenly, with a whoosh, the memorial turned into dust and scattered in all directions. Then, this youth's cold, lightning-like gaze stared coldly at Zhao Qingjun's face. Like two sharp blades that had condensed into solid form. Jun Moxie. You, how did you get in? Under the tyrant young master's sharp gaze, Zhao Qingjun stood up in extreme panic and shouted in a panic, "Someone come! Someone come!" However, his voice was completely unable to be transmitted out for some unknown reason. Even he himself felt that his voice was extremely weak. If he didn't know what he was shouting, he might not even be able to hear it. Jun Moxie smiled cruelly. He suddenly stretched out a hand and grabbed Zhao Qingjun's neck. Just like that, he lifted Zhao Qingjun's feet off the ground. At this moment, Assistant Minister Zhao was terrified to the extreme, but he could not make any sound, much less speak a complete sentence. The air in his lungs had already been cut off. His entire face instantly flushed red, his two legs kicking weakly in the air, and a pitiful light shot out from his eyes. He wanted to beg for mercy, but he still could not utter a single word. You want to harm me? Jun Moxie's calm eyes were like two deep little ponds as he looked at Zhao Qingjun's face. If you only wanted to target me, I might not care too much. But since you actually want to harm my family, then you must die. Jun Moxie increased the strength in his hand a little more. The bones in Zhao Qingjun's neck cracked, and his tongue stuck out. It hung so long that it almost reached his chest. Zhao Qingjun's expression could be said to be extremely pitiful. You still want to harm my woman, and you even use such a vicious method. Jun Moxie exerted more force. He did not have the slightest bit of pity in his heart, and his eyes were as calm as ever. But Zhao Qingjun's neck gave off a crisp sound. It was broken. To be able to turn merit into fault, right into wrong, and black into white, it is truly an impressive ability. Therefore, you sanctimonious hypocrites really deserve to die. Jun Moxie let go, and Zhao Qingjun's body fell to the ground with a bang. His limbs twitched a few times, and then there was no sound. He was already dead, but his eyes were still wide open, they were filled with fear and disbelief. You still dare to die with remaining grievances? Jun Moxie wiped his hands, and put down the towel in an elegant posture. Then, he took a step forward. With this step, he stepped on the face of Zhao Qingjun's corpse that had fallen to the ground, and then he disappeared without a trace. After he disappeared, Zhao Qingjun's eyeballs suddenly exploded with two loud popping sounds. A piece of white paper that was full of words floated in from outside the door. It was gently pasted on Zhao Qingjun's badly mutilated face, and covered this extremely cruel scene. The white shadow was like a ghost, and it flashed in and out of many places in the Tianxiang city like a lightning bolt. One or more officials would perish in every place. Their deaths were too horrible to look at. Almost 80% of the officials who came out of the Wenxing Heavenly Institute had been slaughtered. In just one night, the death toll had already exceeded 30. Some of these people lived in the eastern part of the city, and some lived in the western part of the city. They weren't close to each other, but they weren't gathered in one place either. However, all of them had been killed in one night. According to the speculations of those who were observant, the assassin organization had to have dispatched at least 10 top-notch assassins at the same time tonight in order to achieve such a shocking result. Whether it was the court officials or the officials of the capital, which one of them wasn't under strict protection? However, even if they were under strict protection, they were still killed in silence. Moreover, they didn't make any sound, and didn't leave any trace, there were even a few officials who were killed in their sleep. But the people who were sleeping next to them didn't even realize it. They woke up the next day, and realized that they had been hugging a dead man for the entire night. The expression on the dead man's face clearly indicated that he had been greatly frightened, or perhaps he had been tortured. However, it had already drunk its fill of the blood of corrupt officials. The Wenxing Heavenly Literature Institute had been working hard for the past few decades. So, how could they have climbed to such a high position in the capital? Moreover, it was unknown how much effort they had expended in order to successfully blend into this circle. But now, everything had been destroyed by Da Xiao's sword. Da Xiao could have arranged for his subordinates to carry out these tasks. However, Jun Moxie hadn't carried out such an assassination mission in a long time. It could be said that his hands were itching for action. Therefore, he decided to do it himself. He wanted to send these vermin to hell. Although this was for the sake of the Jun family's affairs, but this feeling of getting rid of evil for the sake of the people made Jun Moxie very happy. This was a kind of spiritual comfort, and the redemption of his conscience. Although the entire process had been full of bloody killings, Da Xiao didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt. On the contrary, there was a feeling of justice is on my sword, and justice is in my hands. This was a feeling of being in control of good and evil, rewards and punishments. To outsiders, this was a cruel and bloodthirsty act. However, Jun Moxie wasn't aware of this. Outsiders can say whatever they want. What does it have to do with me? I have a clear conscience in my actions. Justice is in my heart, even in the face of justice. Jun Wui stood in front of his small courtyard, smiling as he looked at him. Ever since Jun Wui had beaten up Xiao Han in front of the army, he could no longer hide the fact that he had recovered from his disability. Third Master Jun had finally gotten rid of the wheelchair. Therefore, he had been standing for the past few days. He even wished that he could sleep standing. Those who had never been disabled would never be able to experience the blissful feeling of supporting their own body with their own 2 feet. This was simply a type of super enjoyment. Moreover, Jun Wuyi's sudden rise to power was a trivial matter in comparison to the Jun family's sudden rise to prominence. In fact, the crime of deceiving the emperor had been left unsettled. Is it done? Was it very satisfying? Jun Wuyi asked. Ah, it was very satisfying. However, I couldn't kill them. I didn't feel satisfied. Jun Moxie smiled mischievously. Seeing that Jun Wui was about to start lecturing him again, he quickly slipped into his own courtyard, leaving behind a few words. Ah, I haven't slept for a whole night. I'm really tired. I'm going to sleep now, third uncle. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. It's only early in the morning, and you want to see me tomorrow? Jun Wui was about to reprimand him, but he shut his mouth. He smiled helplessly. My nephew has grown up. Moreover, his martial arts are unpredictable. He has a sense of propriety. I might as well let him do as he pleases. At the same time, on the same night, below the snowy peak, there was a fierce battle. It was an extremely tragic battle. One side was the third elder and the others who had just returned from thousands of miles away. On the other side, was the Silver Blizzard City's great elder, Xiao Xingyun, and a large group of experts. The people of the Silver Blizzard City had traveled thousands of miles back. The atmosphere on the way back was extremely heavy. They had brought along 3 people who were half dead. These 3 people were originally from the Silver City, but they had now become traitors. Such a strong contrast made even the third elder, who had lived for 70 or 80 years, unable to bear it. 2 of them were old brothers who had grown up with him. Although there had been friction over the years, and although they had fought and schemed against each other, they had still been through thick and thin for 80 years. Old brothers of 80 years. One belonged to the Silver City's Han family, while the other belonged to the Xiao family. However, even if they were sworn enemies, they should have developed some subtle feelings for each other after 80 years of living together. In other words, they should have developed a feeling of dependence. Even if it wasn't friendship, seeing him reduced to a half-dead and crippled state after 80 years of living together would still make one's heart ache. But why did they betray him? Wouldn't it be good if they maintained this way? Wouldn't it be good if everyone was wholeheartedly working for the Silver City? Whether the Silver City was in the hands of the Han family or the Shao family, wasn't it still the Silver City? Who in the world didn't know that the Silver Blizzard City's Han family and the Shao family were one family? It was only the title of the city lord. Was it really that important? Could it be that the Shao family could change its name after taking over the Silver City? This wasn't a change of dynasty. Chapter 453. Ha ha ha, good. 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 Cut off all ties, cut off all ties. Xiao Xingyun laughed 3 times. His eyes flickered, and the murderous look in his eyes became more and more intense. He suddenly waved his hand and shouted, "Men! Kill these traitors as soon as possible. Don't leave them alive. Kill them without mercy." The white-robed swordsman behind him rushed forward with a loud bang. Han Fei Yun's body floated backwards after he had cut off his ties with Mu Xuetong. He then whispered, "The situation is dangerous. I'm afraid that there's a traitor among the 7 swordsmen. The odds are against us. You must protect the little princess. Then, look for an opportunity to break out of the encirclement. The Silver Blizzard City is close at hand, but it's out of reach. So, you must turn around at full speed, and return to the Tianxiang city to look for Jun Wui and Jun Moxie. They're the only ones who can truly help us now. We'll try our best to hold them off for a while. Remember, this matter concerns the future of the little princess and the Silver Blizzard City. So, we mustn't fail." By the time he finished speaking, the silver-clothed swordsmen had already surrounded him. Each and every one of them had a gloomy expression on their faces. Their gazes were ferocious as they mercilessly drew their swords at the few elders whom they had met day and night. Xiao Xingyun whistled, and 5 white-bearded old men took the lead. Their swords split into 2 colors, and shot forward like a flood dragon. Shen Xian is a grade 2 snow swordsman. The 3rd elder, Han Fei Yun, blurted out in surprise. These were the 5 gifted experts of the Silver Blizzard City. These 5 people had suffered chi deviation at the same time due to an accident. However, the 5 of them were extremely tenacious, and they had actually taken a different path. With the help of a strange and evil Xian Qi, they had forcibly opened up a new meridian route to circulate the Xian Qi in their bodies. Their meridians had been blocked because of the cultivation deviation, but they had suddenly become unobstructed on the day of their success. Therefore, each of these 5 people had the strength of a grade 2 snow swordsman like Shen Xian. However, each of them had the strength of a grade 2 snow swordsman like Shen Xian. Furthermore, it had the strange ability of being cold and hot at the same time. However, 15 years ago, in order to make up for the flaws in their cultivation method, the 5 of them traveled to the distant desert. Since then, there had been no news of them. Everyone in the Silver City had thought that these 5 people had met with misfortune and were buried in the yellow sand. They hadn't expected that they would unexpectedly appear here. Why? The 3rd elder was shocked. He quickly jumped back, and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Why are you here? Didn't you die in the Gobi Desert 15 years ago? The 5 of them were expressionless, as if they didn't know who the person in front of them was. Their long swords formed a colorful sword net, and with a biting cold killing intent, they came crashing down. The 7 swords of the Silver City roared at the same time. Then, their swords interweaved to form a brilliant net of swords. He wanted to give the 3rd elder some time to make arrangements. The 5th elder's white beard fluttered in the wind. His long sword was like a dragon as it flew towards Xiao Xingyun, the elder brother whom he had always revered. Although the sword light was venomous, there were tears in his eyes. Xiao Xingyun's eyes were filled with a cruel and venomous look. He suddenly drew his sword, and the sword light rose sharply. A cold light radiated in all directions as he mercilessly attacked with all his strength. Xiao Xingyun had brought a large number of people with him this time. In fact, there were nearly 100 of them. Moreover, most of them were Earth Xian and Tian Xian senior swordsmen. There were also himself and the double-colored snow swordsman, the 6 Shen Xian experts. It was clear that they wanted to kill the third elder and his team. On the other hand, the third elder had traveled a long distance in order to return to the Silver City as soon as possible. So, he and the fifth elder were the only 2 Shen Xian experts who could still put up a fight. The might of the 7 swords of the Silver City's sword formation was extremely impressive. In fact, it would have been able to resist the 5 swordsmen of the Shen Xian experts if they were to face them. However, the enemy's numbers were simply too many. In fact, they were drowned in a tide of people in the blink of an eye. Mu Shuetong held his long sword in one hand, and Han Yan Meng in the other. He was concentrating on dealing with the enemy's attacks. He was trying to find even the slightest gap. Everyone's lives weren't important at the moment. The safety of the Silver City was the most important. The Silver City would know the truth as long as he and Han Yan Meng could break out of this place. The Shao family's conspiracy couldn't succeed. Mu Shuetong also believed that he was the best candidate to escape with the little princess. The third elder would certainly be more confident in breaking out of the encirclement with the little princess. However, he wouldn't be able to stop the enemy's pursuit. Moreover, Xiao Xingyun was bound to keep a close eye on the third elder. So, the third elder wouldn't be able to escape far even if he were to take advantage of the opportunity to break out of the encirclement. Therefore, the only option left was to sacrifice the strongest person in the team in order to buy as much time as possible. Then, he would be able to escape with the little princess. However, this wasn't the time for pleasantries. Therefore, Mu Shuetong immediately understood the meaning of the third elder's words. Han Yan Meng looked around at the people who were engaged in a life-and-death struggle. She was extremely sad in her heart. Every face here was familiar to her. Everyone here had treated her like a precious jewel. They had hugged and kissed her when she was a child. In fact, everyone here could be said to be her family. However, one of her 2 groups of family members had betrayed her. Moreover, they were engaged in a life-and-death struggle with the people who were protecting her. We were born of the same root. So, why are we so anxious to kill each other? Tears welled up in Han Yan Meng's eyes. She didn't know why this was happening in her pure heart. She only knew that the sky had changed. The third elder steeled his heart as he slowly retreated. The fifth elder and the 7 swords of the Silver City had gradually taken on the majority of the battle. However, the third elder's entire body suddenly emitted a fierce sword light. It seemed as if the sun had suddenly risen to the sky in the middle of a pitch-black night. 10,000 sword lights poured down like the Milky Way. The third elder had used his full strength in this sword attack. It was a fight of life and death. Mu Shuetong didn't utter a word. He rushed forward with Han Yan Meng. He rushed towards the direction that the third elder's sword light had pointed towards. Xiao Xingyun felt that something was amiss. He roared, "Stop them! Capture that little slut!" Then, he turned to the other side and roared, "Attack!" As soon as these words were spoken, the situation on the battlefield suddenly changed. The last of the 7 swords of the Silver City suddenly changed the direction of his sword light, and stabbed at his subordinates. They had lived together for many years. A few blood-curdling screams resounded. 3 of the 7 swords of the Silver City stared in disbelief. Blood spurted out of their chests as they slowly turned around to look at their youngest brother. Their eyes were filled with grief, anger, and confusion. That man's eyes exposed a look of guilt. His expression was complicated as he whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm a member of the Shao family." The 3 of them revealed a look of understanding in their eyes. Then, they calmly fell to the ground. There wasn't the slightest trace of resentment on their faces even at the moment of their death. Perhaps, they still regarded him as their own brother, even in death. The last expression in the eyes of the three was one of boundless pain, awe. The third elder roared as he saw the situation change. He had already guessed that such an unforeseen event would happen. But, he still couldn't bear it. He crazily spouted blood from his mouth. His white beard was covered with speckles of blood. Suddenly, he swung his sword to the left and to the right. Two perfectly round sword lights suddenly shot out.